Attorneys for Luigi Mangione now arguing that the federal case against him should be dismissed entirely, or at a minimum, he should be spared the death penalty. Mangione's lawyers saying in a court filing today that a, quote, torrent of prejudice from multiple public officials have made it impossible for him to get a fair trial. Mangione, who's accused of killing United Healthcare chief Brian Thompson in New York last December, has pleaded not guilty to 4 federal charges. Trial attorney Trey Lovell joins me now with more in today's Burden of Proof. Trey, defense lawyers point specifically to this scene where Mangione was flown in on a helicopter and walked past, you're seeing it right there, walked past the media in shackles as being done, quote, solely to prejudice him. Now, they go on to write that potential jurors were imprinted with a scene out of a Marvel movie with dozens of agents needing to protect the public from the shackled monster Mangione. How do you expect the judge to rule here, given all of this evidence that really the entire world has seen so far?
Well, it was certainly sensational how they transported him to the courthouse. They could have avoided that. Also, one of the defense's points is that Pam Bondi came out declaring her intent to seek the death penalty even before the indictment came down from the grand jury. So there certainly is some overreach, but this really hasn't risen to the level of a dismissal. You know, Bondi's gonna argue that even if she did jump the gun, the evidence is strong enough that the grand jury would have laid down the indictment. They can transport, you know, a prisoner however they want. And so even though I think she did overreach a little bit, and she should tone down, you know, the statements made, it really doesn't rise to the level of a dismissal at this point.
Now, more recently, we've seen President Trump himself call for the death penalty for the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk, as well as the North Carolina man charged in the stabbing death of a woman on a commuter train. How does having the president weigh in on these high-profile cases impact prosecutors?
You know, it is very inappropriate. You know, the prosecution has ethical obligations not to discuss the case. They really are limited just to identifying who the perpetrator is, the charges, the criminal proceedings. They're not supposed to comment on the evidence, give their opinion, anything that could taint the jury, that could sway public sentiment, and that includes the president. So the president is making it difficult for the prosecution, and they really should tone it down. But there's kind of a protocol that initially the judge will give warnings if he thinks it's or she thinks it's going above and beyond. And then maybe a gag order. So there will be some preliminary steps certainly before dismissal. But yeah, it is inappropriate. The prosecution needs to tone down and really keep the statements to a minimum.
So what do you think this will actually look like when or if we actually get to trial?
You know, well, the government certainly has a very strong case if you look at what the reporting is of the evidence. And I think this motion really was promulgated from the fact that the real fight here is going to be the death penalty. You know, there's a strong chance he's going to get convicted, absent some, you know, excruciating evidentiary issues or admissibility issues. But, you know, when this thing gets to the death penalty, that's going to be the fight. And I think both sides realize that. And the defense is trying to get the jump on that. And certainly, you know, do a shot across the bow and says, hey, you know, no more statements in the future. As we just did here, we're going to come at you, you know, prosecution. So shut it down.
All right, Trey Lovell, we always appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.